Well, good evening. How's everybody?
Good.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
I was giggling, but I got myself under control.
You're having too much fun over there.
Living the dream.
Always.
Dr. Neal, if I tell her what I was doing this evening, she'll know why I'm so happy to be here rather than there. One of our favorite doctoral students stopped by unannounced today.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. So I got to spend 2 hours with her, telling her the same thing I've told her the last 6 times I've met with her. That the chance of her getting through IRB is the same as my hair growing back. Like
well, I look forward to hearing that story tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, it's a beauty. Well, I mean, you know, it's a lesson for us all in bias. I mean, if you're a part of the sample group, they're not going to let you do the interviews.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much plainer I can be than that. It's just not going to happen. Andrew, when you came through, how hard was it to get through IRB?
I mean, I had talked in depth with Dr. Putnam about everything first.
Right.
And, you know, I did several submissions just with her.
Yeah.
First, so I got approved the first time, but that was after a lot of back and forth with
Dr. Exactly. And that's what I mean. But I bet you every time you met with her and she spent 2 hours or an hour with you telling you how to do that, I'll bet you probably wrote it down. You probably did that, didn't you? That's what I'm talking about. I'm doing the same thing with this one.
Yep.
But she doesn't write it down, and every day is her first day. And so you know how this goes. I mean, think about your first draft that you had and where it ended up being after several meetings with your chair. Think about the probability that that first draft would have ever gotten through.
Right. It wouldn't have.
Well,
yeah,
never. I mean, I don't understand why folks don't get. IRB does not debate with you. We want this way. Yep. And nothing you can do to argue or you have to change it to that way.
Right.
And that's the hardest part for students to understand is it's not an edit or it's not an adjust. You have to change to what they want. And your chair generally has a pretty good idea of what they'll take or won't take. And that's what we spend time with you doing, but I don't really understand. So,
well, they made it pretty simple. They have a template there.
Yeah.
Just got to follow it.
Yep.
Find the manual, read the manual, follow the manual.
Yeah.
Imagine.
It sounds so easy, but
yeah, but it's not.
It's not.
Well, welcome back. I'm glad to see. We'll see how many we got tonight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We got the gang's all here. And so Dr. Neal's in charge tonight, but I do want to meet the new people.
Yeah, let's get them to introduce themselves.
Hey, my name is Mindy Ledford. I'm sorry I missed you all on the first weekend. I feel like I missed so much and I'm so behind.
No, you're fine. Mindy, tell us where you work and what you do.
So I teach, this semester I'm teaching 10th and 11th grade. I work at the Cherokee Indian Reservation High School in Cherokee.
Awesome.
And I teach 10th and 11th grade. I'm also the head of the detention, that whole thing. I'm head of the after school program, and I'm on a district strategic planning committee, and I'm the student council advisor for the high school. And I'm also the school improvement team facilitator. So I do just 1 or 2 things, you know, not a whole lot.
Your plate is a little full. What subject? What subject do you teach?
I teach English.
English. Nice.
So all of that is excellent training to be a school administrator, where you get to be in charge of a lot of things you don't know much about. That's kind of the whole
Exactly. Alicia, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, and I'm sorry, my dog is coughing.
Oh, it's okay.
I'm Alicia Richardson. I am from Nash County. I am transitioning I'm coming from being an MTSS academic coach, and this is my first year as being a K2 MCL. So I'm doing ELA and math for MCL.
Wow. That's a lot too, covering both content areas.
Mhm.
Well, welcome. We are glad you're with us. And
Thank you.
Natalie, I think she is on a new work computer. I'm not sure if she can hear us. She said she thinks the sound will work. Yep.
I can hear you and I can talk and I can chat, but I have the worst I think I'm allergic to technology because we don't get along very well.
It's okay.
But I teach third grade at Cullowhee Valley, which is right beside of Western Carolina University.
Nice.
And really, I have a 12 and a 14-year-old that keep me pretty busy, as well as some wonderful puppies. And
Oh gosh. Everybody's plate is full. The rest of you guys, since Mindy and Natalie and Alicia didn't get to meet you, I know you've probably taught some face-to-face. If you just want to give a quick introduction of yourself and maybe where you work and what you do, so they all have a good idea as well.
Hi, I'm Katie Herring. I'm in Chesterfield County, South Carolina, and I am an early literacy teacher leader for the district.
Thank you, Katie.
Hi, I'm Heather Wagant, and I'm a special education teacher in Alexander County Schools in North Carolina.
Thank you, Heather.
Hi, I'm Beth Copperwatts. I am in District 5 for Spartanburg County of South Carolina, and I teach freshman English.
Thank you, Beth. Andrew, Anne Marie, which one?
Sure. Hi, I'm Anne Marie Hale. I'm an instructional coach, K-12 in Catawba County Schools. I've got one of the 5 feeders.
Great. Thank you, Anne Marie. And last but not least,
I'm Andrew McCulley. I teach math at Nation Ford High School in Fort Mill School District, South Carolina.
awesome. And Andrew has finished his dissertation. Is anybody else finished from the new group? Mindy or Alicia or Natalie? No? So Andrew, you get to guide and cheer all of them on.
I'll do my best.
All right, so tonight we're going to go over the case studies, and we kind of divided it up so that y'all could dig in a little bit deeper to just 4, but be familiar with all 8. I hope it wasn't too confusing. I hope everybody got a good idea of what they are. We're going to just, in your group, you guys will just talk about the 4 that were assigned to you. And I think I can share. I don't know if Dale is. I want to put them up on the screen. If it will let me. Hold on.
I'm here. I'm sorry. I've got one that's lost. Trying to find her class. I'm trying to help her find her class. So I'm going to share my screen, and you want to see the case studies?
Yes. Do you mind?
I've already got them loaded.
I figured you did.
It's just like I do this for a living.
And I'm still in training, so. All right, so the first group, Anne Marie, Katie, Beth, and Mindy, you had some interesting cases. If you guys want to take turns, kind of just give a brief little summary of what the case is about, what you've identified as a key problem, and then we'll talk about possible solutions. Some of them are a little wonky just because we have laws in North Carolina that keep you from making some of the decisions, but Dale's going to also pipe in about some of the law stuff and how it applies. All right, so number one, a different applicant. Who wants, out of group one, give a little summary of what this one is about?
I can
Okay.
jump in since they
Thank you,
all worked
Mandy.
over the weekend.
Thank you.
So the first case study was about a principal for a large middle school, and she's trying to fill a vacancy for her alternative classroom or her remedial classes. And she has a candidate come in who comes with good credentials. She's very well qualified. She's got great experience. She's got good mannerisms, and it looks to be that the issue is maybe her stature, that she's kind of small, and that she'll be with the, and I hate to say this, but the worst students is how they put it in the school, mostly boys, kids that have been held back or have had behavior issues. And it seems like the issue is whether or not they should hire her based on her stance. And so I just kind of wrote that, schools should be inclusive, not only for the students, but the teachers as well. And her previous experience is valuable. However, I did not like the labels on the students. I thought that was a bit aggressive. And then that's kind of what I went with. And the discrimination laws I felt would play a big part here.
Yes. Who else from the group would like to add to what Mindy provided?
My biggest concern with that scenario was the potential hiring bias, because you have to have a standard hiring process, and you have to interview each candidate with the same sort of process, and you can't walk into it with your decision already made. It's that equal opportunity side of it.
Because in this one, the principal has kind of done a pre-interview, correct? And the committee has not interviewed her yet. So we don't really know what the interview team is going to say either. Who else from the group? Anybody else have anything to add?
That was my thought about the just that faculty selection committee. Is it didn't come out and say, but I believe that what I've reading between the lines, that they should have completed the interview first, because the principal says he just interviewed because he had some time in his schedule. So they've kind of gone against protocol there.
Right.
Or is it law?
What was that, Dale?
Is it protocol or is it law? There's nine things you have to do to hire somebody. Due process, that would be substantive due process. The 9 are the same as who does them in what order that matters. As long as all 9 of them get done, you're okay. But they got to be all 9 the same and in the same order. That's federal law. And so that would be procedural due process. All due process has substance, what you got to do by the law, and then procedure is, did you carry it out? And Katie caught the legal issue here is he varied from the process on the procedural due process. That's unfortunately against the law. So yeah, he kind of stepped in it there. He is open to lawsuit if he can show, if can be shown that he did not follow the process in the correct order, then that is a violation of Equal Opportunity Employment Commission. Yes, that is correct. Good catch, Katie, on the legal.
Yep. Because each district sets up usually a procedure that they expect everybody to follow.
Exactly.
And if you go against that, then you're violating, like Dr. Lamb said, that procedural due process. Yep. Because if it comes back and she says, well, I didn't meet with the team, I just met with the principal.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, big red flags, and you should not do that. So do we think that's kind of that's the main problem, is that the principal, not only the bias that he has about her stature, but the first part of it, that he did not follow the process. So what should he have done? Pretty easy.
Should have followed the process, shouldn't he? He wouldn't find himself in this jam that he's found himself in now. Men are dumb. Y'all already know that, though. He should, you know. Remember that North Star we talked about when we talked about the compass points activity? You have North Star people like me, you know, just go blustering through and forget about protocols and processes and law, and they're in such a hurry to get things done. This is an example of a North Star, how that North Star gets you in trouble. He jumped ahead in the process because he had time. Can't do that. You have to know. And as Dr. Neal said, the district sets, and that's one of your activities for the second half of the course. What is the process in your district? Who does what? You know, your district has it set up. These are the 9 things we're going to do. You know, HR does this, principal does that, your analyst does this. You know, not only the order, but who does them.
Mm-hmm.
It's different in every district, but it's got to be the same. Regardless of which way you do the 9, it's got to be done the same way every time. You can't be a North Star person that says, I'm ready to do something, let's go, and skip 2 or 3 steps in the process. So that's the big one here. Now, the ethical piece of this, do you have to hire somebody like this? Does the law say that you have to hire them? No. But if you said, I'm not hiring you because you're diminutive, that would be a violation of the law. But you don't have to hire somebody. We get into situations like this. There's no mandate that we have to hire this person, but we do have to follow due process. Now, in real life, I had this to happen. She wasn't quite that short, but she was little. And I'd hired her for a 9th grade, the worst bunch I had in school in the 9th grade. And she was a crackerjack teacher, and I knew she had the credentials and all that. So, is the master schedule set in stone? Do you have the authority as a principal to change her into maybe like I did, the lowest grade that I had with a softer group of kids to get her started? Is that against the rules? Absolutely not. And that's exactly what I did. I actually had this one to happen. And her credentials were so good, I hired her. She worked out great. No complaints. Now, I won't say that the teacher that she got switched with was a happy camper, but I needed people. I had 37 vacancies, and so I needed people.
And this is why that team approach is usually good too, because it's not just one person making the decision, it's a team of people making a decision.
Right.
And then as the principal, you can guide those conversations, but you're getting input. A lot of times, maybe you have a rubric that you're giving point values throughout the interview to the person. Then you might, rank them according to the points and have discussions from there. But you have to follow whatever procedure your district has set out for every person.
Yep.
All right, that wasn't too bad. All right, number 2. He wants to give the overview of Satanism.
I'll give an overview.
Okay, Beth.
So you're the principal of an elementary school with 550 students, and there's a group of parents who belong to a neighborhood denominational church. A 6th grade teacher has decided to have a Halloween party, and this group is objecting to the party because it is contrary to what they teach in their church and their religious beliefs. And the school has no policy regarding holiday celebrations. Did not say whether or not the district had policy for it, but the school did not have policy regarding holiday celebrations. So kind of church and state issue here, and religion issues, and honoring religions and then forcing religions.
That's a good catch, Beth, on the district between school policy and district policy. Excellent catch there. Just because your school doesn't have a policy doesn't mean there isn't one. What you don't know can hurt you. Always find out. What was it? I don't know. Again, we get into a debate all the time, me and Renita. I don't know if it was Biggie or Snoop, but you better ask somebody. That's, you know, that's the idea here. If you don't have a policy at your school, you better call the district and see if there's a district policy. Always, in something like this, that's an always. Just because your school doesn't have one, you need to research your district policy.
And I don't know too many elementary schools that don't have policies on parties.
Right.
I'm sure they're out there, but not many, because there are too many gray areas when it comes to parties. You know, we don't call them Christmas parties. We might call them a winter party. You know, we have to change what we say to make sure that we're separating those two if we're in a public school between church and state.
But I'm like you, Dr. Neal. It could happen, but I don't know. I don't know of a school district that doesn't have a policy now. A district. I don't know of one.
No. So, but you know, and then you might go to a district where they do have Halloween, Christmas, everything under the sun. Yes, pray at all the events. You know, there might be what I would call community norms that are followed, but it'll just take that one parent that will come in and can rip those policies or those practices apart and make those policies.
As we say in law and policy, it's all fun and games till somebody gets their eye put out. That one person comes along. I believe that was from Christmas Story with Ralphie, wasn't it? You'll get your eye put out, but the BB gun, yeah. But until that one parent comes along, it can be a community norm, but nobody can give you permission to break the law.
No.
And you got to understand that it may be a community norm, but when somebody sues you, you're going to lose.
Exactly right.
And so I don't know a district that doesn't have a policy on something like this. And if you don't know what it is, ignorance of the law is not an excuse for the policy. You better find out what it is.
Beth, did you have any other ideas of like solutions other than, you know, finding out maybe what the district policy is?
I had lots of solutions. They weren't necessarily good solutions. I went both sides with good and bad solutions.
All right. Well, I like to hear those.
So find out if there's a district policy. You can just straight out cancel the party. You could allow religious students to have a separate party. You could allow the party to remain, but not be associated with Halloween, like a fall harvest party or something. You could, bring the lack of policy to attention of the superintendent and create a policy for the district if there was no district one. So,
all right.
Very good.
There was a time when I remember, it's been a while back, when what we would do is the complaining parents would have an alternative activity for their children. That won't do anymore because these parents, they don't just want their child not to participate. They don't want anybody. See, that's the problem now with parents is everybody wants to get their way. And it's, you know, they're not there for the good of the group. So that you have an alternative activity for their child is not enough. They don't want you to do the activity. But I have seen that work at times, but parents are a whole lot more unreasonable nowadays. I mean, what you'd like to say to most parents is the problem here is your kid's an idiot and it's hereditary, but you can't say that. You might think it, but you just can't say that.
Don't say it because you'll get fired.
Exactly. You can think it, but you also need to understand that parents are going to come into the building and say the most racist, misogynist, discriminatory things you've ever heard, but they're going to qualify it before they say it with, I am not a fill in the blank racist, misogynist, bigot. But then they'll go on to say and the most racist, misogynist, bigoted thing that you've ever heard and expect that you will go along with what they want. This is really about how do you deal with parents who can't spell much reason, much less exercise any. That's what this case study is really about. How are you going to deal with unreasonable parents?
Yep. Another thing I found interesting, I've never ever been in a school at Halloween, and I've been a principal at multiple levels, that you don't give any parameters about what costume they can wear. And especially in 6th grade, what do you think those 6th grade boys are coming in? The bloodiest, goriest, scariest things that they can find. So usually just costumes as a whole is not a good idea. We even changed it where we went to like book characters. So, and definitely no weapons. You know, they love to bring the fake swords and all of that stuff too. So it's just overall a bad plan here.
Now, what I would recommend, remember, you have required work days for a reason. One of the things you have to do by law at that required work day is cover the faculty handbook with the grading policy. That has to be covered. I would also cover things like this at that time in terms of what the expectation is, because it's not just this holiday. As Dr. Neal said, there's probably 40 different things during the year that you could have some sort of a celebration about. Probably about 2 or 3 a month, 4. You could have, you know, there's something comes up every week. You need to have a policy at your school that's supported by your district about dress codes, if we're going to do it or not, what it's going to be. This should not be something that you, otherwise, you know, you're going to have to put a turnstile, a revolving door on your office for parent complaints if you don't do that.
Yeah. You always have parties, especially in elementary schools, birthday parties, and what the parameters are for that. You know, we wouldn't allow people to send flowers and balloons and all that stuff that they would put in the office, then expect to be delivered to the classroom, then ride home on the bus with all of that. We just had to put an overall no on that. And, you know, a lot of schools are even putting restrictions about what they allow parents to bring to celebrate.
Well, every kid in the world now is allergic to something.
That's right.
And so you worry about that, them bringing food for allergies.
Yeah. It's a big deal.
And so you got those kinds of things, because kids won't moderate themselves. They even though they know they have allergies. And so this is a bigger deal than it appears. It's a short case, but it's a bigger deal. There's a lot of facets of this one. You need to know what your policies are. You need to set your parameters. This needs to become a thing. Otherwise, there'll be a celebration in some teacher's room every day. Birthday, every day, there's going to be something. As an elementary principal, I know this, because I know it's hard to believe. But little kids and dogs love me for some reason, and I was an elementary principal. And I can tell you, it's going to be every day. If you don't set the ground rules at the first faculty meeting, the required one where everybody's there, you're going to deal with this every day. And you're going to deal with irate parents every day. And you're going to get some kid with a peanut allergy, you're going to get sick, you know, because some parent brought cupcakes. This has become a big thing. Unfortunately, it has become much bigger than just something as simple as it's a little easy case study. No, this is a big deal now, and you got to deal with it. This is not a law one. This is ethics policy. This is how to have school. Otherwise, you're going to get bogged down on stuff that's not school related, and distract you from your mission every day to make a good number go up or a bad number go down.
And some teachers would rather party every day than teach.
Oh, yeah.
So it can be a big distraction.
Yeah.
Great. All right, let's go on. Can you scroll up to number 5? We're skipping a couple and going to 5. Hold the library patrons. This is quite relevant for today.
This one is close to my heart. Because
okay,
I'm on the district committee for this one. So we have a group of K-8, not a group, it's a K-8 school. So you've got a huge age range, 5 to 14, at least in this school. It's increasingly diverse. There's a new group in the community called the library patrons. They're not affiliated with the school at all, but they have demands. They are, they have demands. They're holding us hostage. So we have to, as a school, establish a citizens committee for the book selection process. We have to include their members on that committee, and we have to immediately remove the books that they have a problem with. And so The books that they have deemed inappropriate are very well known. Some of them are canonical. And the reasons for their objections are for sexual or gay content, offensive language, wizardry and magic, drug use, that kind of stuff. And the group wants to meet within a single week to get this committee formed and to get these books out of the school. And this is definitely a big old fat censorship and infringement issue, sort of violating this crazy thing called the Constitution. And I do believe there is a Supreme Court case out there that says schools cannot just remove books because they don't like them. That there has to be a process, like a district mandated process by which books can be challenged and removed.
All right.
So
Would you meet with these parents, or would you send them to the district rep on this one?
this one would definitely be, this is a district level sort of thing. So this is not me.
Hey,
This has got to come from the big guys.
yeah,
It's a matter of, you know, listening to them and hearing out their concerns that way that they feel valued, but at the same time saying, I'm sorry, we have to follow our process.
would you listen to them and make them feel valued?
Not me, but I probably should.
At the school level, I'm saying at the school level. Should you hear this at the school level?
Honestly, no.
No,
I mean, that would make them feel better, but it's not the process that we follow.
exactly. Again, we go back to due process again. If that's not a part of the procedural due process, we can't do that. Yeah, it might make us a hero, and yeah, it might make them feel better and all those things. But again, we can't be seen treating them differently than the next bunch of kooks that comes along, flat earthers, that wants whatever they want. And so again, we have to be consistent. This is a district initiative, district policy. There's district people that handle this. We should not take this meeting with this people. Because if we do, we're probably going to be in trouble later.
You can say, I understand your concerns, but I'm going to refer you to our district office because they are the ones that handled this. And if you're aware, in North Carolina, the Parent Bill of Rights that was passed, I guess that it became law January 1 of this year. And that they can basically remove any materials 4th grade and under that have anything to do with sexual content, LGBTQ content. They can just take it, doesn't have to go through a committee. It can just kind of arbitrarily, they can decide that, yes, this is part of what the Bill of Rights say that parents have the right to remove, even if, you know, some districts and schools will remove books, even if the homosexuality is mentioned, which really kind of falls a little farther outside of what I think the law was supposed to say, but they definitely have expanded it in many ways.
But with the passage of that law, this is now exclusively a district issue.
Yes. Anne Marie, what other kind of experience have you had with this type of thing?
We had a massive conflict of interest because we got a slew of about 27, I think it was 27 books. So we had a policy in place for it, and a grandparent of a student, and this is not it was non-custodial grandparent, filed all these papers all at once, and then got elected to the school board. And now she kind of runs it. And she's getting all her friends on the school board. So a few things that we're trying to do with the process is make it more, we're trying to streamline the process so it's not as long. Right now, the formal challenge process includes the filing of the paperwork and the evidences, then a school-based committee with a representative of every school, an English teacher from every school, a media coordinator from every school, a parent and a student, and a community member. All read the book. And we go through committee with that book, and we have like a 2-week turnaround as far as it goes. And then if it gets passed from there, she had the complainant has a 30-day window that they can challenge the book again, and then it goes up to a district level committee, which is, you know, the CNI administrators and me and an English teacher, and again community representatives and the AIG coordinator and all that. And so then if our committee reads that book and we still pass that book through, then she can challenge it one more time within that 30 days, and then it goes directly to the school board. And she's done that with I want to say 5 books, and they've banned 2 of them.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we're trying to find ways to make it so that, and she hasn't filed new paperwork in about 30 days. I think she's not 30 days, about a year now. And I think she's realized that it's a conflict, that when you're on the board, you can't be filing these things anymore. And then I think we've got the policy changed to where you actually have to be a parent or a custodial guardian of some sort in order to file paperwork to have books removed from our schools. So it seems to have kind of slowed down for now. But the
Yeah.
Moms for Liberty group is still very strong in the county.
Yes. Yeah, they're a very outspoken group. I know in Iredell Statesville, they have really challenged some books there, and you know, it is a hot topic and a very controversial committee that I would not want to be a part of.
I was voluntold. It works out well. And the funny thing is, some of the books that she's challenged have maybe been checked out 5 times in the last 15 years.
Wow.
So she's not challenging high traffic books.
Yeah.
She's just trafficking the ones that she thinks are
She
the
wants
worst.
she wants to make a point.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, but just the ones that gain her political capital with that group, political group, it got her enough capital that she got elected to the school board.
Yep.
And the
I mean,
books tend to target people who have brown skin, are women. Yeah, so that doesn't help either.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's their political truth. And so, I mean, you know, it stopped because it got her where she needed to be. But it was never about the books. It was about political leverage, becoming, you know, finding a way to break into the political landscape. She wasn't a custodial parent. And if this had been a court case, she would have had no standing, as the court would have ruled. She did this for political leverage. You know, you got to become known for something. And so that's part of it. Is we can thank Bobby Etheridge back in the 70s that politicized school boards in North Carolina for this. He was the first one that, until that time, school board had just been seen as a community service thing, but then he leveraged that into political career. And so school board is seen as a legitimate place to leverage in politic and partisan politic, unfortunately. All right, you don't want to hear my policy class tonight, so we won't be.
Yeah, that's good. It's very, very relevant. All right, anybody else want to give from that group any feedback about this one? Or move on to 6. All right. Who would like to give a little overview of this one?
I will.
Okay.
So case study 6, where will the money come from? It's a middle school principal. 65% of the student population is on free and reduced lunch. And a substantial amount of his activity fund that he's used to pulling for all the extras to fund for both students and teachers. The money comes from drink machines and snack machines. I believe it said 85% comes from those snack and drink machines. But the school district is considering banning snack and drink machines due to the need for students to have a more well-balanced and healthy meal. So I believe this is very relevant because our district has done this, but I think it's a federal. Is this not a federal?
Yes, we talked about this our weekend. Child nutrition is federal. You can't compete with the federal program. We talked about having to turn your drink machines off. Some schools having to take them out, have timers on them, locks, and can't sell candy. And I told you, I sold pizza in the cafeteria and competed with child nutrition because I was $200,000 in the hole. But legally, no, you can't do that. So yes, this is very relevant. And we talked about alternative fund. You're going to have to figure out some other way to raise money. This is not optional whether you go along with this or not, or whether you decide to follow this law or not. You don't want to run afoul of child nutrition and feds, because if they turn your food off with all those free and reduced kids, you're in trouble, because you can't feed that many kids, 65%.
It'll affect your reimbursement,
yes.
and your district will go broke.
Yep, it certainly will. They'll turn it off for everybody, not just your school. And so you have no option other than to find alternative means to raise funds.
Mhm.
Did you have any suggestions, Katie?
That was just, it was work with staff to brainstorm other ways to raise money for the activity fund.
Yeah.
So there's no way around.
The law was that after the last lunch was sold, then you could, like, we had ice cream. We didn't make money off of it though at an elementary school, but in middle schools, I don't know how many middle schools may do it, like even after school, after the bell rings, may sell candy bars or drinks. Does anybody have any of their schools that do that kind of after school? Yeah.
We do that at our school, but what I was going to say too was, what I wrote down was that they should create a list of the exact expenditures that they use from the activity fund and see if any other part of the budget has funds that can be allocated to those specific things.
That's a good idea, Mindy. See what other funding you might be able to use to help pay for some things. We use kind of that general fund for all the things that federal money won't pay for and district money won't pay for. Sometimes it's just fun things for the kids.
Yeah.
Things for the teachers, the staff, incentives. And that money is important, but it can be difficult to come across when you are in a Title I school.
Yeah. And I told you, I do Santa Claus, and we partner with Scholastic, and we do pictures, and you'd be amazed, even in poor Title I communities, how many parents and families will come out and do their Christmas photos with you and buy those. There's ways to do this. I met with Charles Dover from the Dover Foundation. They do little $500 mini grants. We do some of those for the two elementary schools. We have a program there in Bowling Springs. We have two elementaries, and they're both Title I. Little Bulldog backpack, where we send meals home on the weekend, and we raise money for that. Do a lot of little mini grants with different community agencies. If you have a list of what you need, you can go that route as well. Their grant applications are not like usually a half a page or a page long. Take you 5 minutes to do that. There's ways to scramble around and find some local money. Open the concession stands up after school and sell, candy and drinks out of those. There's ways to do this, but the option here, the thing to know from this case study is you can't ignore if the district stops it, then you have to abide by it. You can't decide whether you're going to follow the law or not in this case, because you're risking a lot of federal money, as Dr. Neal said. You can't be in competition with them.
Or call Dale. He'll come and be your Santa for free.
I don't charge a thing, and we raise a lot of money. We do. And we get a lot of sets of classroom books from Scholastic book fairs as well. A lot more than I would have ever imagined.
Yep. That beard is just starting. Just give it, wait a couple months.
It's only 5 or 6 weeks old. Wait till it's 2 months or 3 months old. You'll see.
All right. Well, thank you, Group 1. Y'all did a great job. We appreciate it. All right, Dale, if you'll scroll to number 8. We have our other 4 folks to get us caught up and share some ideas. Starting with number 8, who wants to go first?
I will.
Okay, Andrew.
So case 8's it's a parent who wrote a letter to the principal of a high school expressing concern about her daughter having to choose between attending her sports banquet and studying for her test. So it's kind of I mean, there were there's definitely some things that could be addressed, but there's not really any legal things going on there. She you know, she was saying that she was the captain of the team and got a lot of recognition, and thought it was unfair that the teachers all of her teachers scheduled an assessment for the same day. And that she had to skip the banquet because she wanted to study. And she also claimed that she was speaking for lots of parents and that it was not just her that felt that way. So there were a few things that I felt like could be addressed. So the sports banquet was scheduled like at the very end of the grading period, when teachers traditionally try to get that last test in, to get grades in. And that probably could have been scheduled a little better as far as consulting the academic calendar when you plan an awards banquet. I know that doesn't always mesh. The athletics and academics don't always talk to each other, or very rarely talk to each other, but that is definitely something that that could have been scheduled a little better. And then maybe just having a conversation or trying to think of a solution where that might avoid students having major assessments all on the same day.
Yeah.
Possibly having like a department schedule, like math and English can give tests on whatever. I mean, obviously that's a scheduling nightmare, a logistical nightmare, but there's definitely things that could be done to address that issue. But this is kind of a suck it up, buttercup, in my opinion.
And you probably have some, I mean, you're a high school math teacher, Andrew.
Right.
I mean, things like this, I'm sure, pop up all the time.
Yes, all the time. And I mean, obviously planning time management is definitely a skill that students have to have. And
Yes.
they would have the other concern the parent suggested in the letter was that teachers didn't inform her daughter of the assessment until a couple days before, which, if that was true, that's an issue that needs to be addressed. Stressing the importance of long-term planning to the faculty and saying you need to have X number of days warning. I'm sure in at the high school level especially, we have to post it in like 12 different places, and have it available at least 2 weeks in advance or a week in advance, depending on how long the unit is. But at the beginning of every unit, I have to have my entire unit plan submitted and posted on Google Classroom or whatever. But
yeah,
so
that communication, planning, and whatever parameters and policies your school has set up to ensure that kids are prepared. They know, parents are always going to put in a letter, I'm not the only one, and my child said, you can't always go with exactly what they tell you. You definitely have to get your own information, but I do think you have to dig a little deeper. And if you are the principal of a high school, you have to be aware of things like this.
Right.
Are there any high schools out there that don't have a master testing calendar?
Oh, yeah. Yes, there are many.
That And
You
I'm not
mentioned-
being facetious when I ask that. It's not mandated. The only mandate is that you cover the grading scale with teachers at that first work day. If you're a smart principal, you will have them work on their master testing. It's not a requirement. But if you're smart, you will do that. It will avoid things, because this is going to happen pretty much every quarter in a high school. If you don't have a master calendar, this is going to happen every quarter.
Right.
There's always going to be something that pops up: band concert, choral concert, athletic banquet, away ball games, district playoffs, conference playoffs. There's always going to be something popping up in a high school. And if you're smart, you will do a master on that required work day. When you cover that, this is the grading scale that's, that the State Board of Education has adopted. The local Board of Education had some leeway, and this is what they've set in terms of, how much everything counts. Here it is. All right, high school, because of all the extracurricular activities we have, I need for you to develop a testing calendar and stick as closely as you can to that calendar. And so that we can make sure that when we plan things, that we don't have because again, this is every week in a high school if you don't.
Every week.
Mhm.
I know of a situation just last spring where there were dance performances backed up to AP exams.
Right.
And that became a big sticky issue because kids were exhausted and were expected to be at all these practices. And then here come the AP exams starting the next day.
Yeah.
And some parents lost their minds about that too.
Yeah.
So it's communication.
Yeah.
And running a high school and knowing how all of those things, athletics, arts, and academics, all have to live under the same roof. So you need to figure out how to communicate and balance it out well. And Dr. Lamb is correct, but I don't know many. Now, some of the big high schools and big districts have those master calendars, but I've been working with a lot of small districts.
Yep.
And their high schools do not have master testing schedules, but they should.
Well, that was my experience. In the two districts that I worked in before Charlotte, wasn't a thing. And it was always a problem. But now in Charlotte, you were required to do that as a high school.
Right.
The bigger districts knew what was going to happen. And again, understanding that in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, they were paying for the AP exams. So you dare not do something that conflicted with the AP exam when the district was paying. That was the biggie, or the IP or the IB exams.
Yeah.
Because they were paying.
Anybody else in that group have any feedback about this one? Alicia, Natalie, Heather? Andrew did a good job with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. All right, number 11.
I'll do this one.
All right,
This one
Heather.
kind of, this case study escalates kind of fast. So it's a pre-K through fifth grade school, and parents wrote a letter to the principal, AP, and the school board. I think that's a pretty important fact. These parents have 2 children enrolled, but the issue is with the third grade teacher named Miss Davis. The parents wrote that their daughter has reported that Miss Davis denies recess to the whole class if one student misbehaves. They also reported that Miss Davis has used the words dumb, stupid. She's called students ignorant fools, and she's used the phrase behavior worse than her 2-year-old. In the letter, the parents acknowledge that their daughter may be perceiving these words differently than intended. However, they have also observed Miss Davis in the classroom screaming and waving her arms to get students to sit down after transition. In the letter, parents use words such as verbal abuse, and they claim that that is just as bad as physical abuse, and they are requesting that their daughter be transferred to another class. So there's major problems here. Obviously the claim of verbal abuse, withholding recess, having to decide about transferring that student to a different class. The first thing I would do because of this claim of verbal abuse would be to call HR and follow whatever protocol I feel like that they have for a situation like this. And then depending on that, let's say that it's they find that it's not exactly what's happened. I still think that the teacher needs some training or PD regarding classroom management, and you know, because it seems to all be discipline type issues. But I definitely would get HR involved because the school board's going to be involved and they are claiming verbal abuse.
Just because you received this letter doesn't mean it's all true.
No, absolutely not. That's why I think you have to do like an investigation, but at the same time, I think you do have to take it seriously until you figure out what exactly is happening. And I even suggested looking back at, as the principal, looking back at your observations, if you've noticed anything with the classroom environment or the classroom management.
And as
Yeah,
the school,
have you been doing any walkthroughs in that room?
right,
Right.
because as the school principal, you should have a good idea of what's going on in the classrooms. Now, are you there every minute? But if you're walking around enough, you'll know.
Mhm.
And maybe you have, and maybe you haven't addressed the issues, but I can promise you as an elementary principal, you're going to receive letters like this.
Mhm.
It's going to happen.
So we actually had a situation kind of similar to this in my school. There was a lot of parents contacting the principal about a teacher of a special needs classroom, that there was maybe some mistreatment and, you know, verbal type things. And the principal kind of just wrote them off in a way, or they felt that he did. And it ended up eventually where that teacher actually was accused of physical assault on a student. So, I mean, and so they had a whole process. Well, why wasn't anything done beforehand? And it became a whole, I mean, police were involved, the whole thing. So, I mean, it definitely, like, I feel like you don't,
You can't ignore it.
immediately jump to guilt, but you also have to
Right.
do, your job and figure out what exactly is happening.
And what you said, Heather, is exactly right. You got to call HR. Now, you don't have to call the law on this one because
Right.
there's not been a report of a crime. Now,
Right.
what if this one said that she grabbed my daughter up and physically assaulted my daughter?
Then
What
you
would
would
our
call the
first call be in that case?
your first call, because I remember it from this weekend class, you call the police first.
There you go, because that's what state law says. If there's
Right.
been an accusation of a crime or a violent act, it says police, then superintendent, or the
Mhm.
superintendent's designee, which is HR in this case.
Yeah.
If it's something like this, it's very clear. It says you call the superintendent or the designee on a case like this. So we have to be careful. We have to make sure we read the content of this. We got to make a call. We can't just, it's not an egg. It won't hatch if we sit on it. It won't get better. It won't go away. The law says we've got to make a call when we get stuff like this. The determination is where do you make the call?
Right.
And Heather's exactly right. In a case like this, where there's not an accusation that a law has been broken, just bad behavior or unprofessional behavior, we call the superintendent's designee, which is personnel on this one, called human resources. Now, I circle back to what Dr. Neal said. How could you be principal and this be going on and you not know it's happening? I would question whether you're getting out of your office or not, or you're not hiding at the ball field or the cafeteria. That's the thing. You should know. I mean, one of our legal case studies on the inclusion model for EC in the second half of the course is parents come in and complain what's going on in the classroom. The teacher and the principal doesn't even know. And then not only does she not go look or ask, she sends somebody else to look.
Yeah.
That's not acceptable behavior. You should know, and if you don't know, you should have known. But the legal part of this one is the law says you got to make a call. You just have to determine whether it's the superintendent's designee or the police first.
But don't ignore it, and don't, like Adele said, don't don't sit on it. Because it will likely come back to bite you.
It's
I mean, do
worse.
you immediately change the kid's class? No. In my opinion, no. You need to get some more information. You need to dig a little deeper. Now, you could be a brand new principal at this school and you don't have any background information. You received this the first month of school. But I promise you, somebody in HR probably knows more about this teacher or someone else, if there's an assistant principal, or may have some other history on the teacher and possibly the parent too, but you have to dig deeper. You cannot just take it for face value, and you cannot ignore it.
And unfortunately, that's, we tend to do one or the other.
Yes.
We either knee jerk and move the kid, or we don't do anything.
Yeah.
But the law is very clear. We've got to make the call, and they will guide us then as to what our next steps will be, and they'll know if there's been any other complaints.
Mm-hmm.
They will have information on this kind of thing. Unfortunately,
To the school board member, that school board member's calling the superintendent and finding out, is anybody taking care of this?
right. That's exactly right. Now, one of the things that is unfortunate in our business, and it happens generally in smaller districts, but it can happen anywhere, is what we refer to as passing the trash. You've got a bad teacher, and then you encourage them to go to the transfer portal in the spring, and basically you have this understanding that you won't write up all the bad stuff that they've done if they'll leave. And so there could be cases, as Dr. Neal said, where you don't have any background on this teacher. That happens more than I'd like to admit, unfortunately. And sometimes there is nothing at HR because the principal didn't turn anything in, so that they ran the deal where they would get them to transfer somewhere else. And so that's a cautionary tale for taking transfers. And don't think because you're professional friends with that principal somewhere else in the county that they won't do this to you. Don't make that mistake. One of my doctoral students, Lord, she cried on my shoulder till my shirt was wet. Not because that she had gotten a meth addict, but because she thought was her best friend in the business is the one that passed and dumped her on her. And you find out that in this business, you don't have a lot of friends sometimes. But she absolutely passed a meth addict to her, and she had to suspend her the first week of school. And come to find out, the previous principal had cut a deal. She'd leave, but she wouldn't turn her in and get her drug test. And she thought the principal was her friend. She absolutely thought the principal was. Don't make that mistake on transfers. So this is a cautionary tale on taking transfers as well. And once you got them, you own them. They're now yours, and you own their problems. You need to understand that. That's an unfortunate part of our business, but it's relevant, unfortunately.
Yes. All right, thank you, Heather. Anybody else from the group have any feedback about this one you want to share? Or? Awesome. All right, 12.
I'll take 12. I don't mind.
Okay, Alicia.
So this is about a principal at a high school, and there are 4 students in the office. They were sent to the office for violating the dress code. The girls are wearing burqas, and the boy has facial hair and a cap, which isn't permitted because of the dress code that was established by the faculty advisory group and the student council. And the students feel like the dress code is violating their Muslim religious values, and it's unfair because of discrimination. So the key problem is the dress code, to me, is unfair to the Muslim students because it's violating their religion. And I think one of my biggest questions was, does the school dress code policy align with the district dress code policy?
There you go. Can your school pass a policy contrary to the district's policy?
Don't
Absolutely
think
not.
so. Okay.
No, absolutely not. So we had a great, your first case study on the law side is about a grading issue. And one of the suggestions that I had from one of the group one time was we'll just change the policy. We'll just change the grading policy at our school. No, you won't. The district sets that policy, because the State Board of Education sets the overall parameters and allows the local district a little bit of leeway on the percentages, but not much. It's mostly on how much the state tests count. But you can't just say, well, we're ignoring the state and the local school board, their policies, the State Board of Education and the local Board of Education, and we'll just make our own. So the initial problem with this case study is in sentence 2 of the case study is dress code was approved by student council and faculty advisory group. On what authority? They have none, good or bad. That they have no standing. They can't be passing policies or making policies. It's not a policy. That's just a bunch of kids on the playground making stuff up. We like it when elementary kids use their imagination, but that's for kids. You as adults, that's not the world we can live in. So that's the first problem, and that's the problem in this case. And as we know, these people are being discriminated against because of their religion. So there's no school district that's going to have a policy that does that. This is a local thing where some people got together and way exceeded their authority. And you have to correct that as a school principal. You have to remind them, today's my day to be in charge. I'll let you know when it's your day. It's not today. So no policies from you.
Now, in a private school, it may be very different.
Yeah.
Because they're not operating, but you still cannot discriminate even if you are a private school. You have to be careful.
This is discriminatory.
Yeah.
So even in a private school, you could not pull this off. But in a public school, again, the faculty and the students have no authority to be passing policies. None.
Very good. Thank you, Alicia. Anybody else have any feedback they'd like to give? All right, last but not least, number 14. Natalie.
Yes. I'm
Yay!
sorry, I tried to do 12, even though I didn't want to touch 12 at all myself.
Alicia took that one.
I know. So the principal of an elementary school got a parent phone call that she had been trying to contact her son's teacher because he was failing science. And the parent hadn't received a response, and she had been in the school. So the principal followed up after their contact. She contacted the principal and said she hadn't received a response. And the principal encouraged her to reach out again. And then the parent was at the school. The principal followed up, and she said she still hadn't got a response. So the principal did what I think would be normal, is to go and follow up with the teacher and get what happened with the teacher. And the teacher is a little upset because, they've been out sick and they've communicated with parents. And so the actions then are, I do think this is a school level, but I do think maybe the teacher still isn't feeling well, maybe, and isn't thinking, I don't know. I guess I am a teacher. So to me, it would be very normal just to respond to parents, even outside of normal conferences, because parents are going to have concerns at all times. So we should follow up. And then I think, but the principal wants to support the teacher. I am all over with legal and my opinions, because I think where I'm still in a classroom, it's just really hard to, know what you feel as a teacher, but then to have to look at it from a legal point of view and from administration and support your teachers, but also do what's right for students. And I think just keeping what's right for students in mind is where we all have to be. So for me, I think the teacher should have called back here, but I just feel like you're going to have to relay that to the teacher in a way that she understands it and help bridge a gap and get the child the support that he needs, and maybe help the teacher with some options.
I think that's good, Natalie, as far as, you want to do both. You want to support the teacher, but you also have to address the issue. And that can be difficult to do. in both ways, but you can't ignore it. But you can also address it without being confrontational, I believe. And it's how you address the issue with the teacher. But how many of you in schools, Natalie, for example, do you have like a policy at school, not a law, but a policy about responding to parents in a timely manner?
So there, I guess like we've just had we have had a lot of discussion around this because like last year, our middle school teachers were not communicating. And so we have Remind, which is the communication where you can text and send messages back and forth to parents through
Yes.
a Remind app that protects, your privacy and phone numbers. You can set your office hours. But, there's a lot of ways that you can communicate. And so it did become policy this year that we have to use the Remind app and how frequently we have to do it, because before, I think that was left up to interpretation, which is a little scary, when you start getting everybody's interpretation on something. So when you're sending out grades and reminds and notes and phone calls and there's parent meetings. Oh, I just saw you at an IEP meeting. Oh, I saw you at a sports event. Like those were not contacts from you as the teacher in a classroom. And I think that that's kind of where some confusion happened, that this year they had to put some hard policies down about how you will send out a remind weekly to your parents about upcoming, what's being covered in curriculum, what's happening in class, if there's any upcoming events, holidays, closings, so forth. But I think when things are left up to interpretation, but sometimes I think that's also how we find mistakes and we learn and we make changes. Is something happens and we realize that, oh, we do need to fix that. I don't think, this one definitely isn't a legal thing. Unfortunately, sometimes there are legal issues where it's a little too late, but I think this is a fixable situation.
Yes, I agree. Great job, Natalie.
That Natalie said we have to be, in paraphrase, we have to be champion for kids. We have to do what's right for them. While we want to support teachers all that we can, if there's a choice, we have to be a champion for students. And I think kind of nailed down what happened in Natalie's district is exactly what happens. You put these things in place and you assume people will use them. No, they won't. You have to follow up with the expectation of what time limits are. I commiserate with the teacher who's been out ill, but that doesn't change the fact that if we've established 24/48, or 424, or whatever our standard is, then we have to stay within that. But we have to set that standard to start with. This is a reminder for us all that we can have all the tools in the world, but if we don't require their usage, then they won't get used.
Right.
And this may be, I am self-aware. I'm a grumbly old man that stands out in the yard and shouts at clouds and does all that. But this is more of what you're going to experience as an emerging school leader than what I experienced 40 years ago. In that, when I was an emerging school leader, in that teachers are now caught up in work-life balance. That was not a thing when I came along. It wasn't such a thing. But now teachers are all about work-life balance and boundaries, and when I'm off the clock and all those things. And you're going to have to find some kind of way to adjudicate that, so that you don't leave situations hanging and unaddressed, but at the same time, you have some respect for teachers, some boundaries for their time.
Yes.
Because that's a thing now. It wasn't 40 years ago. You understood that you were a teacher all the time. You were a school administrator 24 hours a day. People are rejecting that notion now. And good or for bad, this is the world that we've entered into now, is that folks don't want to do these things. And so we're going to have to mandate that they do.
You have to set kind of that expectation about communicating with parents, and especially in an elementary school, establishing those relationships. And if you don't respond to parents, you lose their trust quickly. Now they get to middle school and high school and parents drop off quickly. and don't necessarily care, go or wonder what's going on at school as much, and they become less and less involved. But at an elementary school, it is important to put that time in, but you kind of have to establish that culture within your school as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you, Natalie.
Can I add something?
Yes,
Of
please.
course.
So this may be the high school versus the elementary school, but I got kind of heated reading this one because of the way, first of all, the parent, it said, or at least the way I interpreted it, it said that the parent was just sending notes to the, like, I'm assuming with her student, or
Like the take home folder.
okay. But the issue I had with was the way the principal addressed the teacher about it. They just put a letter in their mailbox, where I
Yeah.
feel like that should be a one-on-one
Yeah, absolutely.
conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That would be
And
what we used to call a come to Jesus meeting, or what we now refer to as a critical conversation for all you smart curriculum people.
Right.
You're exactly right, Andrew. We got to have a critical conversation. That's not a note kind of thing.
yeah, and just what drives me nuts more than anything is when a principal sends out some of y'all are doing this, and sends a blanket email to the entire staff.
Punishes the many for the sins of the few. Number one rule, don't do that as a school administrator. Do not punish the many for the sins of the few.
That's right.
If you got one person coming in late every morning, then you need to talk with that one person.
Right.
Don't send a reminder saying, y'all got to be to work on time when it's just one person. I tell you, that's probably one complaint I hear consistently in these classes and from groups and teachers is, don't, like he said, don't punish everybody. Don't send out blanket expectations or kind of little slaps on the wrist instead of having that crucial conversation and talk to the people that it really involves.
Exactly.
It's cowardly.
Yeah.
Can I jump in? This is not life changing, but when it says that she sent an announcement the very first of the year about days and times she's available. It seems like it would have been really easy for her also to send one out saying, hey, just to let you guys know, I'm out sick for a few days. There's a sub. I will be unreachable probably. But if you need something immediately, this is a step you can take. But just letting the parents know that she's out sick anyway could have probably taken care of a lot of this as well.
All right. So,
And can I add to that? Because I took, I think, more of an issue with the teacher than some of my colleagues, because she's teaching third graders, so they're 8-year-olds. So you're gonna have to communicate with parents, whether you want to
yeah.
or not. And she made the comment to the principal that she can't be responding on every occasion to notes from the parents. Well, this parent has sent more than one note, and it's not their child is failing science, and they're not blaming the teacher. They're asking how they can help at home. So I feel like you're really you're not taking that partnership. And I mean, I'm at a school that would love to have parents that want to partner. So I mean, that was just my thoughts. I took more of an issue with the teacher's response, I think.
Yes, I like that a lot. When you get a parent, when you've got them where they want to help, that's as good as it gets in elementary school, folks. But because, like Dr. Neal said, by the time they're in high school, they don't care. The parents don't want to know if they're axe murderers. They just want you to have to deal with it. Nobody likes middle school kids. Good Lord, you can't find their parents. You that bolo out for them. Search warrant trying to find parents at certain middle school kids. If you got parents that want to help and want to be involved, that's what you want. Now,
Yes.
I'm they keep me around to be the bad example. So, but this is not an ego thing. I want to show you something that I do that I think teachers ought to do more of in this communication deal. So just let me do this. And so what I do is All the free time that I've got this fall that I'm not in class or in meetings or sleeping, I've charted it out on Mondays and Fridays on my office hour days. I have done all the Mondays of the fall and all the Fridays. And you can sign up for a time to communicate with me.
For all of his dissertations.
For all of my dissertation students. All my Monday and Friday days. There it is. And you can see they're all starting to sign up. I've got a good many of them already signed up. I think I've got, I don't know, 25 or 30 and sign them up. But again, this is, y'all know me, so y'all aren't impressed. But the idea here is we have all this modern technology. We have Zoom, we have all these things that we can do. Even somebody as old and grumbly as me, there's no excuse not to communicate with the client system. And as Heather said, in elementary school, for an 8-year-old, the client system is the parent. That, you know, and they can find some time to do that. It makes a lot of difference to the client system when you will do that. You know, as you can see, it's just Mondays and Fridays, my office hour days. And it's the spare time that I'm not doing something else. They won't all fill up, but the idea here is you know, you matter to me. The communication matters. You are a stakeholder. I value you. That's what that says is I value you. And with all the modern communication tools, why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we encouraging teachers to do that? Where we let the client system know that we value them. Because it's all about market share, folks. If we don't serve them, somebody else will.
And I'm like you, Andrew, I wouldn't put a note in their box. I would walk to their room and say, have you gotten these notes? What's going, you know, without being confrontational, just try to get more information.
Right. I just feel like it's very passive aggressive.
Yes, it is. Well, it's easy. It's easier for me just to write a note instead of walking down to your room and talking to you for a few minutes.
Right.
Natalie, did you have something?
Yeah, I guess I experienced this last year. I have a middle school boy. He's 14. He remembers nothing except picture days in October and a little girl's told him to go buy a polo. $5 for the field trip. So I went to the teachers and said, hey, Cash said he needed money. You're not going to let him go because he doesn't have his permission form. This is a kid that gives you no trouble. I'm in the school. The child lives here 24/7, like good student, no behaviors, takes up for the teachers. Was, well, we need to teach him independent communication. We need to teach him how to be responsible. And so the result for being a good kid and just forgetting things like that is to take and to punish him. And so they said, do you have a better solution? And I thought for a minute and I said, yeah, teach him to use technology and to send me an email from him stating what he needs and make him do it right there in front of you, your whole class. And I promise you parents will have the communication that they need. But I think that like teaching kids responsibility may have gone too far, especially with middle school kids. I mean, I respect middle school teachers. I have a lot of respect for them because I'm raising a 14 and a 12-year-old, so I get it. But I just think that we've gotten lost in like what it means to communicate. And maybe some of the technology has taken away from building relationships and trying to make sure that parents know their kids are okay, because it's like that was on the district website. Well, I don't have time to look at the district website, the school website, and everything else. So
that's just somebody being difficult and not just trying to help out kids.
Yes.
Middle school boys
but
don't
that
know
is the approach of a lot of people now. Mm-hmm. This is true.
Yeah. But you're right. Teach them a way to communicate with their parents. Do something to help, not just find a punishment for them. I will never understand that avenue.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of teachers that set up gotchas in the business.
Yes.
And it tends to be a pattern with those teachers, and then they argue, well, the kid did this or didn't do that, but you know, in law we call that foreseeability. Could a reasonable person foresee that this could be a problem? If so, you had a responsibility to do something to keep it from happening. You know that middle school kids are forgetful. You know that they're not responsible. You're setting up traps for them, and they're not aware enough not to walk in them. But you are, as an adult, you should be aware enough not to set those traps. And so you're just doing gotchas on these kids. That's just punitive. That's just being ugly. I know they're aggravating. Trust me, I know they're aggravating. But you got to find some corner of your heart that loves them enough that you do the right thing by them. It's really hard. But the kids that deserve love the most deserve it the least. But you got to find that within you to be a champion for them. It's really hard.
Well, you guys did a great job tonight. Thank you so much for participating. And was this format good for y'all? Did that work for you? Okay. All right. So
the star of the week. We can't forget our star of the week. I told you I was going to read everything you turn in. So I want to call on our star of the week, Katie. She watched the Finland phenomenon, and she wrote a really thoughtful synopsis of what she thought was why that they're successful in Finland. If you want to share that with us, Katie, I thought it was an excellent point.
I just thought, I mean, there were lots of things that they talked about with student participation, lots of best practices that we see in schools here. But I thought the overarching thing that for me probably had the most impact was their teacher education program, and the way that there's this culture of feedback and a culture of collaboration that begins at the university level. That was kind of my big takeaway.
I think student teaching is harmful the way we do it. I think it keeps our young people from growing and developing into great teachers. I am not a fan of how we do student teaching in this country. And Katie made a great point. Their preparation at the university level is so much better and deeper, and so much more comprehensive than 5 weeks of student teaching with some middle-aged lady that that never has classroom management issues, because that's always who we pick to put student teachers with. But I thought Katie hit the nail on the head. The reason that they do better there is their teachers so much better prepared when they step into that first classroom. I thought that was an excellent point. Thank you for that, Katie.
Good job, Katie.
Do we submit our notes from tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
Just your notes, just something that we can hang a grade on.
Okay.
Now, remembering that in online format like this, we want you to come every week. We love you. We want you to come every week. But for attendance purposes, we have to have an assignment. It doesn't have to, again, I told you, I don't want another PowerPoint. I don't want War and Peace. I don't want 17 pages. Just something that you wrote down, the equivalent of a bar napkin, with some ideas on it. That's all. We got to have a physical product that says you attended this week.
All right. Our next class, Dale, is it when is our next one? I don't have the schedule pulled up.
I've got it right here in front of me. I have it ready to look. All right, so tonight we will meet again on the 10th and the 17th. We will meet the next 2 weeks, and then we'll take a week off, and then we'll be back in October for our last one for this half of the course. And then we'll have our next weekend, and then we'll start the Tuesdays for the last half of the course. So you've got the next 2 a week off, and then the final one on October 1st. Then we'll have that second week in October. We don't have a class because we meet that weekend, and we don't have one the following week. I try not to meet on either side of the weekends. And then we'll resume with our classes for the 4 classes for that half of the course on October 22nd, October 29th, November 5th, and November 12th. We'll do 4 solid weeks on that one. And then the following weekend on that one, we'll meet in Charlotte on the 23rd, and we'll be done.
Okay.
So we'll meet the next 2 weeks in a row before you get a week off from us. But I'm very pleased. I told you, Dr. Neal, you'd love working with this group, how smart they are. They get it. They caught the core issue with every one of the case studies tonight. They caught the core immediately. This doesn't happen with the other groups. I told you, you love working with this bunch. They're smart
and prepared, which I love.
Yep.
That's awesome.
This is the best gig I've ever had teaching is these groups. I love this because you're always planned, you're prepared, you're smart, you catch on
and participate. I love it.
Yeah. This is as good as it gets, and I appreciate that. I really love doing this with you folks. I appreciate you.
All right, I will put in there, assign more case studies to you guys. I'll do that tonight for those of you that want to go ahead and get ahead. And then we'll do the same format with the same group. We'll just assign more studies, more cases. Okay?
All right. I'll process and post the video from tonight for Prosperity. It'll be in the shell later tonight under this week. So again, I thank you, Dr. Neal. Take us home.
All right, Andrew, did you have something else? I saw you came off of mute.
No, I'm okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. All right, guys, have a great week. Get some rest. Enjoy the cool teas of fall out there. And we will see you next Tuesday on the 10th. Thank you, Dr. Lamb. Thanks for your help and input too.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Bye.